Thank you so much to the co-chairs and members of the committee. Especially thank you to the chair joining us on a tour of the Charles River recently. So everything I say, you've already heard.
I love a boat tour.
So for the rest of you, Charles River Watershed Association was founded in 1965 by a group of residents that did not accept the conventional wisdom at the time that the Charles could not be cleaned up. And our mission was then and is still to protect and restore the Charles and its watershed lands. Anyone who's from the area and old enough remembers how disgusting the river used to be. We've come a long way since our dirty water days, and it's incredible to see the rowers and kayakers and sailboats out there now. In fact, this past weekend we had the head of the Charles Regatta, 11,000 rowers, over 200,000 spectators from all over the world. And then this is where we cue the ominous music. It was a red flag day on Sunday. We issue red flags, and the boathouses fly them, and it's on our website and our Twitter, when there's a sewage release. So day 2 of the regatta, the Sunday, was a red flag day where all those rowers were out. One of the boats overturned in poopy water, and I submit to you, Boston and Massachusetts should do better than that. In 2023, that we are still having raw sewage discharged into, not to have any competition among rivers here, Patrick's going to talk about the Mystic, but in the Charles River, when we are Massachusetts, we're leaders with the environment, we're the innovation state, we've got Harvard, MIT, biotech, et cetera. It's simply unacceptable. And back in the 80s, it was your predecessors, the legislature, there were some lawsuits involved, but setting that aside, your predecessors created the MWRA. They had been literally dealing with our sewage with Band-Aids and baling wire. Deer Island was catching on fire, and you all said that is not acceptable. You created the MWRA. They have their own bonding authority and authority to handle this. At this point, they are more or less saying it's not really worth it to do more CSO mitigation, and we are obviously not on the same page with them. It will cost money. There is money available from the federal government, so we're really urging you / begging you to get involved, because I don't feel like, as someone on the ground in our organization on the ground doing the advocacy, without your leadership, I am concerned that this will be the situation. And obviously with climate change, we have bigger rainstorms, so we're actually seeing more sewage this year than, say, in a drought year, and we know that more water is coming. So strongly urge support for this bill out of committee, and look forward to working with you on it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'm Patrick Heron, Executive Director at the Mystic River Watershed Association. Thank you, Chair Cahill and Chair Roush, for welcoming our testimony. As you may know, the Mystic River is among the most urbanized watersheds in Massachusetts. It has about 7% of the residents, and it has the largest releases of untreated combined sewer overflows in Greater Boston. And the reason that this matters, and I'm happy to know there's so much familiarity in some ways with combined sewer overflows. CSOs carry pathogens, the bacteria, the viruses. And what research is showing is that if you live in an area that has CSOs, and this has happened in the Merrimack in particular, you see this correlation between high intensity rainfall and trips to the emergency room for gastrointestinal illnesses. You see more research coming out, and I think we're going to hear testimony today from just the volumes of CSOs in those communities and trips to the emergency room. At the same time, we know that CSO discharges are an environmental justice issue. They're not equally distributed throughout the state. And to quote a colleague, Dr. Sanders, an affiliate at Harvard University, he says, "In a just commonwealth, your zip code does not determine your exposure to CSOs. But in Massachusetts, if you live in a watershed with 2 times as much poverty, you have about 3 times as much combined sewer overflow. If you live in a watershed with 2 times as many people of color, you have about 4 times as much sewage discharge." These issues are at a nexus at Alewife Brook in the Mystic, and we have environmental justice populations, and we have people who are living with their backyards right up against this brook. Regulation doesn't really counter for the issues of the brook, the sewage actually coming over the brook into people's backyards, into the paths. This bill sets a standard for correcting these issues, and addressing both the climate change that is going to cause additional discharges in 2050. So I think what we're learning right now is that when all of this started in 1992, we had a certain volume of discharges. With climate change by 2050, we expect to have double, if not almost 4 times, as much sewage discharges as happened when we started this in 1992. This bill sets a benchmark for all of us to reach. It's a reasonable bill. It gives a timetable for getting there. Like the others have said, it's not going to be easy, but for the residents that we care about, especially environmental justice communities, it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you both for your testimony. Any questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Emily, I share your outrage, and as well because we represent a city that is paid for CSOs.
That's your timer.
That's mine.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Hit it once, the green light. Hit it once. There you go, you're on.
Thank you. Talks about CSO mitigation. In our situation, it's the Atlantic Ocean. It's not a river. What are the strategies you would use in the watersheds? And I'm wondering if we can replicate them in the open ocean.
So I can tell you what I know about our watershed, and I don't know how much would be applicable there, but the MWRA, to their credit, deserves so much kudos for tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in projects that have sort of, if you know, you probably know what a CSO is, a combined sewer. So the sewer separations, storage, that kind of investment. The projects that haven't been done yet in our watershed are the ones that are more complicated because you're in a heavily urbanized environment. And so their argument is that, and I'm sure they will speak for themselves, but what they've submitted in writing in their annual report and letters to the judge is that further mitigation is not worth the money, that the cost-benefit analysis doesn't justify that. I would submit to you that your residents, our residents, all of your constituents, this is the kind of thing they probably want their tax dollars to go toward. So let's have that conversation. In our watershed, what they're saying, like I said, is that it's not worth the money to do more, but they haven't actually shown us the analysis, so we just had a very interesting meeting yesterday. So we're in these conversations, but just knowing the history, actually reading a book about the history of the Boston Harbor lawsuit, it really was the legislature, the public rising up that caused the solutions to follow, as well as the lawsuits. So I can't speak to the engineering solutions there, but we know a lot more now than we did in the 80s. Green stormwater infrastructure wasn't even a thing, that you can store stormwater in rain gardens, bioswales, storage tanks in order to prevent it from overflowing the combined systems. And maybe that could even be cheaper than a full separation. Maybe that could be even more effective. So you have to take a modern approach. We did a webinar with Mystic and some other groups last week that I will forward to your office. I strongly recommend it, where we talked about the examples. Even Kansas City is doing more innovative things than we are. New York, if I have to bring in that sort of competition in. Philadelphia. So if we look around the country, much less the world, other folks are being more innovative than our folks here. And it's no disparagement to MWRA or anyone. I mean, fantastic professionals there. I'm quite confident that they have the ability to do this. And I think MWRA isn't your system, but they need to know that you all and the public will support the investments necessary, and we need to know that what they are looking at, the analysis they're doing, is actually the most cost-effective and the most creative. And unless we have a transparent conversation where you're showing us what you're throwing on the table, and we can kick the tires on it, and we're just not seeing that yet. I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
No, good.
Thank you both. Any further questions? I'll do Representative Kastner, then Representative Giannino.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to emphasize a point that you had made, is just that climate change has really increased the urgency of this issue. I remember 25 years ago, I sailed quite a bit in the Charles River in high school, and at the time that Weld jumped into the river, and we were on the way, and it was to improvement. And just with climate change, coupling with so many other things with a really aging infrastructure in this region. I think I just wanted to commend you for being here and also note that, it's not a town-by-town community. It has to be a regional approach, and even in some ways, we talk about the Merrimack multi-state approach. So, but just really want to emphasize yes, I think there's natural solutions that we need to continue to look at, but just the urgency based on these really high, these rain events that we're seeing. So thank you so much.
Can I make one more comment to that?
Sure.
So the Clean Water Act promised in 1972 that we would have fishable, swimmable rivers by 1983. The Clean Charles Initiative, we started in 1995, promised swimmable rivers by 2005. So we've all been promised fishable, swimmable rivers since I was in junior high. And that was a while ago. So right now, I think this is really about just honoring our promises to the public. And I just got off a webinar that the Governor Healy administration organized about federal funding and getting federal funding. So now is really the time. Anyone who lived through ERA in 2008, once that money was gone, it went to the folks who got organized, and then it was gone. So now really is the time to, to make the case, get organized, get in line for these projects, and beat out other areas of the country.
Thank you. Representative Giannino. Is there a green light? Oh, yours might not be working.
She's loud. It's okay.
Right? Just a quick question. I know you mentioned something about the Charles. My question is more towards the Mystic. So I represent the Pennsylvania River Construction and Watershed, so I'm familiar with that set of issues. On the Mystic, is there a flag program so that we know when water's coming out in the Mystic at like the Walden Pond, the 20 or all these places along the Mystic River? And is there any coordination with the MWRA locks to make sure that when these CSOs are happening, that we're opening the locks and making sure this is not staying in the Mystic?
Those are such great questions. There is both, this committee itself passed a bill just a few years ago on a CSO notification bill that's really helped draw attention to the issues and alert the public. A part of that is empowering and requiring the information gets to the boards of public health, as well as local media, news and radio and television, which has been really helpful. During the time that rainfall causes CSOs, that amount of water in the river requires them to discharge water from the river so it doesn't flood. So they're actively releasing water twice a day, at least at low tide, to move that water out. So yes, I think there's a lot more that can be done to protect public health, I think, to your point.
And is that a very active waterway in terms of recreational boating? I know because that's been what's in the cover there. And I think it would be helpful for boaters and people that kayak and enjoy that river to know what's coming out, because it's not as advertised as it is in the pond.
That's true, and I think our organization has tried to do some work by creating a predictive system that goes out via social media, and at the same time, why should a local nonprofit organization feel like they need to develop a predictive model and develop a social media tool to get that out? It should be done by the operators as much as they can.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you both for your testimony.